how did you get on? How did you get to be the co-host of the Chip Chipperson podcast? How did he find you?
Oh, I found him kind of. So I was a fan of Chip since he started the podcast. Excuse me. Can't fuck that up. I was a fan since he started the podcast. I fucking love Chip. It's so stupid. It makes me laugh so hard.
It does. Yeah.
Yes, it's ridiculous. I love it. And I love Jim. My dad was a big comedy guy, so I grew up knowing like who Jim Norton was and a lot of those comedians.
Wow. Okay.
But I wasn't aware of Chip. Yeah, as a fan. But I wasn't aware of Chip until I met my husband, Nick, because he was the producer for Ron and Fez.
Who I adore, is like a genuinely nice guy. Like,
he is so sweet.
So many girls that I have on the show, like they bring on their husbands or their boyfriends, and then they're like, one is trashier than the next. I'm not going to name names, but I'm just like, oh, God. It's like a lot of them are just hangers on, like, especially because a lot of them are like porn girls and adult film stars. And I'm like, like you are just clinging to youth, you know what I mean? Like affliction shirts. I don't know.
No.
I see no judging. But I'm just like, I am judgy.
I'm judging. As soon as you said affliction shirts, I was like, oh, I know those guys. Tap out shirts,
many
hats.
Rings.
Like,
I'm just like, you are with her because it like she validates your virality or whatever. Vitality, I don't know. Man stuff. I get it.
Either or. Same. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Everyone wants to be with a hot girl. I get it. But I'm just like, oh, it's like a stereotype almost. But anyway, yeah. Nick is a delight, like just a joyful, good soul.
He is. He's a sweet boy. He's a good egg. And he's super supportive and awesome, which is great. Like he's like the biggest supporter of everything that I do, which is awesome. Because if you are not with someone who's like that, it's going to make the relationship difficult and it's going to make what you're doing difficult. But yeah, I was a fan and so Nick introduced me to Chip because he was a big O&A guy and he was the producer for Ron and Fez. And so he was like, oh yeah, this is this character that Jim does. And I started watching it and my sense of humor is ridiculous. So I immediately was like, this is amazing. So we were watching all of them and they were out, Jim and Sam were out in LA when I was living there to, I think for like a week and they were recording at AfterBuzz where I was hosting at the time. So I was doing like various after shows, Marvel Movie News, Marvel News Daily. I did a lot of Marvel stuff. I love Marvel.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I did.
I should try to get you on Friday Night Tights. They would love you.
That'd be awesome. Did they talk nerd stuff? I feel like I've heard them before.
It's almost all nerd stuff. Yeah, nerd stuff, pop culture stuff. Like how like the woke is sort of killing our nostalgia and our.
Oh yeah. I don't like to go on those rants, but yeah. But so anyway, they were out there and they were recording and I had just gotten done with the show at AfterBuzz and Phil was like, oh, you're a big fan of Chip, aren't you? They're recording here in 20 minutes. Do you want to be on? And I was like, yes, I fucking absolutely want to be on. And so they put me on. I wasn't even supposed to be on the show. And I was in one of the other
What
studios.
Year was this?
This was, I think, 2017, 2018, something like that. I can't remember exactly. It was a few years ago. And I was in the room with the other girls before we went in. The other girls were like, oh, wait, you know what this is? Like, what is this? Because they didn't know what it was. And I wouldn't tell them. They were really unhappy with me. I was like, you'll see, it's going to be really fun. They fucking hated me for it.
Oh, no.
So,
there's not much to figure out. You're just like.
It's obviously a character show. Like, anyone that goes on and is confused, I'm like, you're so fucking stupid. Like, it's obviously a character. It might be weird, but you're still dumb for not realizing that it's like a weird character.
If you don't know who Jim Norton is, it's still a funny character. It's just goofy.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, just yes and it, you know?
Exactly, which I feel like is not too hard. So they basically were like, you have to act like you don't know who he is because that's the bit. And I was like, sure, I can do that. No problem. So I went on and then Chip was gone for a little bit. And then in the pandemic, he brought it back because he couldn't do stand-up anymore.
He was at Gas Digital. He would record like above the Comedy Cellar.
Yes.
Not Gas, Riotcast.
Not Gas, Riotcast, yeah.
Riotcast, which was above the cellar. They would record there. And then I think he was going to stop doing the show altogether.
Yeah.
Like he had hung it up.
Yep. He retired Chip Chipperson. And then he brought it back in the pandemic. And so I reached out, I emailed him and was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I was on once. I would really love it if I could, if you'd have me back on. And he was like, email back, was like, yes, of course. Like, I would love to have you on. And I emailed him a couple more times after that to like kind of nudge him because sometimes, you know, and I was just like, what?
Yeah, he gets very busy and like forgets.
Yeah,
And
he's got a lot going on. And I was like, what have I got to lose? Fuck it. Who cares? So I just, reached out and then started coming on more and more. And it's been fucking awesome. I have so much fun on Chip. I love it.
And how did you get to be kind of a co-host just from being on it so often? And just being like, I'm going to take the lead. I'm going to like organize this.
Well, it was one of those things where I was on so much and I feel like I kind of took over the role of like Krystyna and Lauren, who I thought both of them were great. When Lauren left Chip, I remember being like, why would she leave? She's Lauren? Perfect.
Is she the blonde?
No, she was the brunette. She was the first not co-host. It was producer. She was like the first producer for Chip.
Okay. Because I know Krystyna, she was so sweet. She had like a very long commute back and forth from like, I think Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And like, she would tell me about it. And I'd be like, how are you doing this commute? It was like something like 4 or 5 hours a day, like back and forth, like something unreal. Like once you get into like over like a 3 or more hour commute, that's like, whoa, you got to really love what you do.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that's why she stopped doing it. I think because the commute got really bad because she moved to Pennsylvania. And Jim said the same thing. He's like, I'd love to have her on more, but she's in Pennsylvania. Like she's never in the city. Yeah. So Lauren was on, and then I guess I sort of just started filling that role a little bit. And Jim started asking me for help with things. And so I started bringing him prep. I'll help him book the show. So I just basically kind of started doing more and more of those things, which has been awesome because it gives me more experience, I guess, in the world of all this kind of stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, you're great.
And Jim is awesome.
You're great with the Chip character. Like you can't. It's like it takes us. For anyone who's watched the show, it really takes a certain kind of guest to be good on that show. It's like just because you're a good comic doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna be good on the show. It's like you it's an old improv principle of like truly like yes anding, and you in particular are very good at taking like everything he says and kind of like giving it more meaning, and that is how the show is funny. Like you have to acknowledge, even if he says the smallest thing and you question him about it, like, oh, your dog died when you were little, like how did that happen? And then that becomes a story, or if it's already an established story, he gets to like bring it up again. And it's fun to watch people kind of like poke holes in what he says, or like, and he loves puns, like, which is one of my strengths. Like, you know, anytime I can think of a pun quickly and get it out.
Always good.
He'll do the like, do you know what you just said? And he'll rewind it, and then you got to like say it again, and it's never as good the second time than when you said it in the moment. And it's just so fun and goofy. And I don't know, not that it's not a smart character. It's just like, I think maybe it reminds you of it's like the inner child is very much alive. I think that's what people like.
I think so too. And I think that that's the whole point behind the Chip Chipperson character, is that he's meant to be so ridiculous and so bad and so completely not self-aware of it. And that's sort of the whole thing. And it just becomes really fun.
Yeah.
Especially when he's like part of it.
Like how he is with like the ladies. He has this bad, like, and I don't know how it's gotten, I guess over time he's like not brushing the wig, but like the wig is like twisted and weird, and like you're clearly not, like, I own several wigs, so I'm like getting to know about wig care. It's like you got to brush them through, sometimes you got to wash them, sometimes you got to hang it up, and it's like I think he probably just throws it into a bag and then takes it out.
Oh yeah,
and it's like just crunched. It used to be like this flowing thing, and now it's just like looks like half a dreadlock. And it's so funny though. It's like part of the charm. And then the face that he has to hold like for an hour plus 2 hours. It's like
the most impressive part to me is the face that he holds. I don't know how he does that. Like I've tried before because people are like, do Chip, like, and I can't do it. I don't know how he does it. It's amazing. Same thing when he does Doug, which is his newest character that Jim loves.
Doug Bell. Doug Bell was on this podcast.
Was he?
And people were like, I gave no context at all. I just was like, I brought him on like a regular guest. I'm like, oh, Doug Bell, and like all these stories about like back in the day. And a lot of the viewers were very confused and like probably unsubscribed, but you know, it was worth it because it was such a terrible funny
character. I love it. It's so bad. It's amazing. And that's also based on someone who's like overly medicated, has the like little white
always has something in his mouth.
Yeah, the
always.
corner. Oh, it's so
Yeah.
terrible.
People think that the Doug Bell character is based off of Opie from Opie and Anthony.
Jim has said it's not, but I don't know. Like he's publicly said it's not based on
It
Opie,
could be
but
a compilation of like every
maybe,
guy
yeah.
that's kind of like that. Like, oh, back in the day. Like, so for those of you who've been living under a rock, I've never seen Chip Chipperson. Here's like a sampling. There's the intro, and then this was the most recent one.
This one people hated so much because this girl didn't know what Chip was. I mean, that does sum it up in one word.
How do you
not? Yeah, hold on. Fix your hair, Daddy.
He does the
What did Lainey tell
background.
you? Lainey's your publicist.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what she
And he's
said.
one of Lainey's home,
Well,
right?
she-
Or is
she
he
just-
there?
No.
He's
She
there
said,
in
hey,
studio. Okay.
I was
He's
getting
there
my
in
hair done
studio,
about,
yeah.
2 hours
This is
ago.
at Gas Digital.
Well, you haven't done to it.
Good studio. I filmed some
just,
episodes there. So
getting
she
it,
was she
washed
given no
and,
prep on what this was?
flat iron and all that.
They
So
flat iron
this
it?
was
Does it
a
hurt?
weird one
No.
because we
How'd
couldn't
they
find
flat iron
anyone
it? My mother put an iron on my
for the
back one time.
podcast, and we
Oh,
were it
no.
was
Yeah, she
the
did.
last minute, and we asked
'Cause the team
everybody,
Lamar
and we
was watching
couldn't.
Lamar was my mother's friend.
Oh,
He was
no.
he was
That
watching the
happens,
team and
yeah.
they lost.
Yeah,
They
so
lost
we
his
couldn't find
spirit.
anyone. So I guess he
The red
talked to
money had been
Lainey,
gambled
who
away.
manages
So
a lot of
she
those
flat ironed and
the
touched my
porn
back.
girls who do porn and things like
Was
that.
supposed to
Yes.
get rent money somehow?
No,
Yeah, Lainey's
they
great.
lost
She's hooked me up with like a lot
No,
of
he gambled
Yeah,
great money.
yeah,
over
she's
the
really
years.
good.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah,
she
what
got
do you
her
think
on,
of
and Jim
Doug
asked her
Bell?
like,
Kid
"Hey, does she know who
decide.
Chip is?" And she's like,
Oh,
"Yeah,
come
she
on,
loves
Doug
Chip."
Bell.
She clearly did not.
she looks perplexed. But yeah, what's great about Chip is like he has so much merch. He wears his own shirts, which is like, you know, that rule. Like you're not supposed to wear the shirt to the concert, but he shows up wearing his own
Yes, he
shirts
does.
all the time. But it's
Yeah.
great. It's like it's his character. It's so good, and he thinks he like looks so good. He thinks he's so stylish, and then like you just like yes and him like, oh, you look great, Chip, or like oh,
It's my favorite.
almost
thing.
like you're
fucking
his
love it.
mother, or like he's your retarded brother, and you just have to be like, you look great today.
Imagine if you were standing here. There's like a green-
You're like, you look so good, Chip. I love your jacket.
Yeah.
That's my favorite
Over New
thing.
York.
My dad got to meet not Chip, but Jim.
H House Kitchen.
I was trying to get my dad to
Wow,
come
he
on
must
Chip.
have been. Was he like starstruck?
He was definitely like, oh wow, this is really cool because he loves Jim's comedy. My little brother loves Jim's comedy. He was listening to Jim when he was like 12 and 13, and my dad was like, this probably isn't appropriate, but oh well.
Yeah. That's how you know somebody is like a real comedy fan, if they are fans of Jim or like Rich Voss or like Opie and Anthony, and like all those guys kind of hung together and kind of came up together. So, oh wow.